Well, greetings. Tom Kuhn here, and I'm glad you joined us today for our fourth weekly financial roundtable for schools. I'm excited to be with you today. We're going to get a lot of input and conversation going today with some of our current and future members of the Brain Trust. So anyway, hey, just to kind of give you a setup here, we believe and all agree and all understand how important schools are, the ecosystem of the professional beauty industry. And school owners or small business or school owners and managers and instructors are part of the small business community also, not just the professional beauty industry. So anyway, there's unique financial challenges, opportunities, and so we love having the opportunity to get with you like this on a weekly basis. We took last week off. Hope you guys had a good Memorial Day week. And we just completed our 47th roundtable at 10 a.m. Central Time. That's for more salons and spas. This particular segment is definitely for schools. So Qnity, our company at Qnity, as well as Pivot Point, are sponsoring this. And also big shout out to Lightheart Sanders, CPAs. We got to hear from Jared, I think it was 3 weeks ago. Jared Sanders, who's a principal of this firm. And they also want to get behind this roundtable. So they're going to become a sponsor going forward, which we're very excited about because we know that Jared and his team really wants to jumpstart something they've been working on for years, and that's a benchmarking study for schools, financial related benchmarks. Jared and his team's done a great job on that. That is brand neutral. It's not just for any particular brand of schools. And so anyway, we want to support that. And anyway, so thanks to Lightheart Sanders for also being part of this. So anyway, we do these roundtables at every week. We do take some weeks off. We're going to take a week off coming up around July 4th. We'll get to that later. So the whole idea with this roundtable was to model it off to something that was working very, very well, continues to work very, very well with salons and spas, and to bring the same thing to the school community. So we're assembling over time a wall of fame as it relates to the school brain trust. And we kicked it off with Susan Heisey, Nicole Cumberlander, and Linnell Lynch, three dynamos that helped us get this thing going. So thanks to all of them. They were with us the first session. I know at least Nicole is with us today. We'll get to hear from her in a little bit. And 2 weeks ago, last time we did this, we had Leon Alexander and Rowena Yeager, as well as Stephanie Fox. And it was a very rich conversation about recruiting talent that was covered by Stephanie. And she gave us some really great data in terms of what's on the minds of students and other professionals, a study of 20,000 either entering the workforce or in the workforce. And then the information that came from Leon and Rowena was awesome because it was about technology. It was about smart mirrors. It was about Amazon salons. It was about technology to streamline the front desk to increase customer service. So it was a great session. We do record these. If you can't participate live, again, we do have recordings of this, and Michelle could put in the chat how you get the recording. So light bulb moments, there's always light bulb moments that come out of these sessions. And what we're going to do today is we're going to do this session, we'll call it Clubhouse style. What we mean by that is I'm going to invite certain people to the mic. Some of the topics that we're going to cover today are planning and agility. Those I think are going to be the main ones. We had a very rich conversation about agility a little bit earlier this morning. So excited to bring that to you. So you have a little bit of a context in terms of how we organize these roundtables. We organize them based upon what we refer to at Qnity as the 5 functions of the business, which are marketing, education, operations, human capital, and finance. Now, this is a finance roundtable, but as we all know, you can't move one arm of the business without all the other arms moving too. So what you do in marketing affects finance, what you do in human capital affects finance, and vice versa. So anyway, finance is the crux of this, but we did, so first of all, I do want to give you an update. So we do polls, and what we'll do is, I know a lot of you school owners and managers are looking for data and information. So we're going to continue to do our polling and to do bite-sized chunk surveys and then also support the kind of work that Jared and his team's doing regarding benchmarks. But one of the things we covered on the last session is who is leading your finance function. And in 22%, 22% of you said that it's the owner filling the role of the CFO, 11% outsourced, and then 56% have an in-house CFO, controller, or someone that is a full charge professional that really runs the finance function. And a third of you, I love this, a third of you upgraded your finance function in 2020. I love that because a big part of our mission is to raise the collective level of financial sustainability and skills. And certainly the school industry, like all small business fields, there's an opportunity to get better and better at that. Now, we also asked on the last roundtable, has technology lessened the need for desk hours? 44% of you said yes, 44% of you said no, and the ones that didn't reply basically didn't apply. That's why it's not 100%. Now, all right, I've got some things for you that I want to share with you before we open this up to some people to contribute. And I want to talk a little bit about government financing. So PPP is over. It's done. Put a fork in it. It ended, I think it was maybe last weekend. I think it was last weekend. So that's over. Now, let's not forget about the SBA. So I want to spend a couple minutes talking about SBA financing and remind you, or if you don't know this, then let you know that borrowers funded for a conventional SBA loan between now and the end of September will receive their first 3 months of payments paid by the government up to $9,000 a month, and all of the guarantee fees are waived. Now, this has been something that's been extended now, and this has got to be at least the third time. So originally, this was only going to be through September 2020. And so it's been extended again. And so I'm going to give you some applications of that in a moment here. But now let's put this into perspective in terms of what this means to have this type of government relief. For a 10-year SBA loan of $350,000, this will save $19,200 as just an example, in addition to the savings on the guarantee fees. So definitely want to take a look at this, and I'll tell you where in a moment. But remember, SBA loans can go up to $5 million for working capital acquisitions, partner buyouts, debt restructuring, and up to almost $13 million for owner-occupied real estate and equipment loans. So let's spend a little bit of time on that just for a moment. So reminder, the 7A are really what's referred to as the signature SBA loans. That's the most common loan. And again, it's for working capital acquisitions, buyouts, debt restructuring, et cetera. The 504 is real estate and equipment. So for a 7A, what's needed is a business plan, projections, and the credit score requirements are only 650. So now, why am I bringing this up? Because what we've seen is many take advantage of this financing to purchase a building, the building they're in, or another building. We also saw how it was a great way to bring in key employees as partners. I have a group out of Pennsylvania that had 7 locations, and they spun off all 7 locations to an individual member of the team. And all 7 of them get SBA financing last year and saved a ton of money. So it escalated a transition plan for the owner. And it also was a great opportunity for new blood coming in as owners. So certainly SBA for buying a business, real estate, refinancing. And so just want to give you a heads up on that, just to keep that in mind. The other thing that I want to talk about, and we're going to get some dialogue going on this one, is the whole concept of mid-year planning. So June is here. And what are you doing for the second half of the year? So Michelle's going to pull up a poll right here, and we'd love to get as many of you to participate as possible. So she's going to bring up a poll here that relates to planning, where you're at in the planning process. Are you doing any plans? So just take a quick moment and see how you answer this. And we're going to break it down. Different types of plans: financial plan, budget, projection, forecast, pro forma, whatever you want to call it. And then there's an operational plan that really is not a strategic plan. It's more of a short-term plan that outlines who's going to do what when for the second half of the year. Operational plan is going to cover marketing. It's going to cover education. It's going to cover human capital and marketing. So let's see where we're at with planning and see how it's coming in right now. And please, if as many of you can answer as possible. It looks like certainly it's more common if people have a financial plan, and we've got a lot of sort ofs, which means that maybe you've started doing a plan, but it's not completed. So let's see how we tally up marketing. Let's see there. So far, 50% of you are saying you don't have a marketing plan. 63% if you include sort of. So a great temperature taker. I mean, planning's important, and this is a great time of year to plan. So I'm going to give you some quick best practices on this, why this continues to pop up here. So I'm going to give you my approach to planning and something that I found has worked really, really well that fits with the normal flow of a small business, especially in a business in our industry. What I like to do is do a financial plan, we'll call it a budget, in the fall. Start it in October and put it to bed at the end of November, and then put it on a put it to rest for a moment. Certainly, if you need to submit a plan to a third party, whether it's a bank or some other stakeholder, great. But if you're using the budget internally, what I like to do is let it get cold a little bit for the month of December as you wrap up the year. And then right after the first of the year, pick it up again, use that first couple of weeks of January and firm up whatever your financial plan is for the year. That's also a great time to do reviews. It's also a great time to go through with your staff what the plan is. So January is a really, really great month to finalize your planning, communicate your planning. And then July is another great time to do a reset of your financial plan. What I recommend is taking a fresh look at your financial plan in June. What's happened? What's changed? Are there new assumptions? Are there things that you now have greater clarity on for the second half of the year? I think we're delusional if we think that we can really accurately and do a great job of planning for an entire year in today's volatility and the pace of change. So that's why I think this is a perfect time of year to pull out your financial plan, see what assumptions has changed, do some tweaks for the second half of the year, and go from there. A couple other things about this. At Qnity, we follow something called 8 seasons, which takes your planning and breaks it down into 8 separate planning cycles for the year. It's a deeper dive. I know we have several clients on here that might be using our 8-season structure, but that's all I got for you on planning. Now, all right, what I would love to do is see if we can get some conversation going. And we invited some people to contribute today. And let's see who we can pull off the mic here. Let's see if we can get Nicole come off mute, Mark Gonzalez, Kip, you're welcome to come off. Jared, would love to have some of you talk about your planning. And Orlando, you're welcome to join us too. So we're going to go a little bit Clubhouse style and have a dialogue. Mark Gonzalez, how are you this morning? Or yes, it is this morning, New Mexico. How are you?
Good. Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. It's great to hear your voice, Mark.
Great.
Mark,
well, thanks for having me, Tom.
Yeah, before we get too far into this, just give people just a 20-second who's Mark, how many schools you own, and all of that.
Mark Gonzalez, Albuquerque, New Mexico. We have one Aveda Institute in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's 4 salons, and it's a very interesting time to be doing business. I kind of jokingly say, but I really look at it as don't let a good pandemic pass you by. There's opportunity in there.
Tell us now, how are you approaching planning for the second half of the year, Mark? Are you having a pause in the year? Or are you just kind of rolling your financial plan? Talk to us a little bit about your planning.
We had a big disruption, of course, with COVID, as everybody else did. We continued to teach, though, distance learning. We kept the school going, that students were at home, teachers are at home. kept flowing with that. It was limited in terms of hours and what we could provide. So we kept it going. And so that was the plan at the time. Before it happened, I was trying to do something like that just so that kids who, let's say, when they had a leave of absence or family issues, that we could still keep them connected in the learning process through distance learning. And it was mostly an experiment at that time. But when all this happened, I'm glad we got a little jump start on it because we were able to enact it real quick and get it to work. So with that, now we're getting back. We still have some limitations with the COVID situation. We're at 75%. So it does cause a little bit of limitation. But planning, we're going ahead. We got more classes starting. It seems like there's going to be more people are looking for career change after post-COVID. They got laid off, looking for different opportunities. This created opportunities. So I think we're going to see an influx of new students coming in.
So are you updating your budget for the second half of the year, or are you going to use the budget that you already have in place?
We're going to readjust it, kind of tweak it.
So reforecast based upon, expected enrollment and cost changes.
Right.
And
still some of we don't know exactly when they're going to lift it. They just, we still haven't approached the level of inoculations that the governor wants to see to release everything. So it's going to come. So that's what some of the planning is related to that, but we're looking at demand and we're actually adding more classes and adding more things to teach in the classes. So with that, there'll be budget changes because you got to buy equipment and add staffing.
Yeah, well,
and actually, I'm actually looking to. I have since the last Jared, I think, was on our call 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with him and want to engage him in looking at how we can better use the benchmarks. The benchmarks that we have are kind of self-created, and I think with his insight be a plus to streamline that benchmarking process. And because we use it in the salons, they've been established for a long time with the beta network. In the schools, it's not so cut and dry.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great that you're talking to Jared, and I love the idea. So this whole idea of benchmarks supporting the work that Jared's doing, I know that you love the benchmarks and you've been craving them for school. So thanks for being involved in that. So Mark, I can see we're planning today. We're going to move over to Nicole just a second here, and we should get Jared to the mic here too. So yeah, it's hard to plan today when you're with this volatility. Planning and budgeting and projections is based upon what's called assumptions. And if the assumptions are volatile or you don't know, there's all these unknowns, it makes it much harder to do that. So Mark, stay with us a little bit, and let's get to Jared next. Jared, your name just came up. Your ears were ringing. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful.
So let's and we'll do some bite-sized chunks, questions and answers, Jared. So looking at planning for the second half of the year, and I'm sure you could go very deep into this, but just looking at the second half of the year from a CPA's perspective, and I know you're not necessarily the tax guy in your firm, but do you have any recommendations for these guys as they look at the second half of the year, and just like and just short bumper sticker short, like a few minutes?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we kind of break it up into budget by necessity and budget with purpose. So by necessity, is really talking about, like, we'll look at all the schools that had a close composite score or a failing composite score or something like that. Those are the ones that have to do intentional steps between now and the end of the year to rectify and get good with either NACIS or their accreditor or the Department of Education.
So compliance related then, right, Jared?
Yeah, well, it's compliance in terms of the financial standards. So
Sure.
We're still talking about, making sure you have sufficient cash or equity and stuff like that, but really just stepping back and saying, okay, last year we got way too close to the bar. And so where are we going to land up next year? What do we need to be planning? So there's planning going in to make sure that a school is going to be in a much better shape in December. Once you get past that, then yes, you can move into, planning with purpose, which is really about focusing on your profitability, focusing upon, your adjustments in terms of planning things out. And we also throw the tax planning inside there. So you've got, you do have to have this balance. We talk all the time about with schools that are in Title IV, your 6% is what your net income needs to be. Anything over that, you're getting taxed on income that isn't doing you any benefit from a composite score standpoint. So there is a mixture that we try and pull our team in, and from that standpoint and saying, okay, here's our schools that desperately need, they're just trying to get up to the bar and get the department or accreditor off them. And then here's our group of schools that are really looking at it from the standpoint of we're healthy, but just because you're healthy doesn't mean that you shouldn't plan or have do things intentionally. So at that point, it does shift to managing your tax bill, managing your goals. You mentioned the loans in terms of getting a building and stuff like that. What's your progression over the next 5-10 years about where you want to see your school? Where do you want to see you as an owner from an equity standpoint and stuff like that? So it does shift in terms of your goals, but if you don't have it, if you're not planning with purpose, then you're just going down, you're there for the ride. And sometimes there's rapids and sometimes there's calm water.
I really like the distinction, the planning with purpose type verbiage. We'll allow you to coin that. I think it's great. All right, so stay tuned here. Nicole, how are you today? And do you have Orlando with you, or is he off in another land?
Hey, Tom. I am flying solo today. I think he might be on another line.
I think he might be. I think he is on. So Orlando, if you want to come to the mic, you're welcome to too. Not to put any pressure on you, but Nicole, the subject of planning and financial planning. I know with you. There's Orlando. So let's get Orlando off the mic too. So we got the dynamic duo here. So we got Orlando and Nicole. So hi, Orlando. How are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Yeah. Hey. So
perfect.
So both of you are like together have just done such an amazing job of creating this wonderful business and driving it. And Orlando, finance is more your lane. Is that right?
Hold on. I'm traveling, so I'm having a hard time with my AirPods and my phone. So forgive me if I'm going in and out here.
You're actually okay. We can hear you pretty good, Orlando. So
Nicole, can you go ahead and take over? I'm trying to get myself on.
Okay. Nicole, take over.
I got you back.
So tell us about planning as you look at the second half of the year, Nicole, for you and Orlando and your team. Any insights, anything you're doing a little bit different, or rituals you normally have in the month of June or July?
Well, actually, Tom, we are consistently looking at our planning. Whatever we plan for this year, we like to try and look at things on a monthly basis so that we can see exactly what's going on and make the adjustments along the way, as opposed to waiting the 6 months. And then in some cases, you're in a position where you can fix it, and sometimes you're in a position when you can't. But we have just found in the past that if we look at it on a monthly basis and make the adjustments as we go along, that's worked out a little better for us. Right now, we're doing a lot of spending a lot of time on our human capital and what that looks like. The pandemic kind of created some interesting situations for us, both good and bad. But one of the things that we found ourselves in is finding we need to increase our staffing in both locations. We have 2 schools, and they're both very similar in the way that they run, but we're looking for staffing, with, as I'm sure a lot of people are. And we have figured out that we need to approach it a lot differently. I know we were going to talk about that a little bit more a little later, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. But that's an area that we're really spending a lot of our time on.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, you're right. We'll get to that in a little bit. I think you talked about it being an employee market these days. Just like in real estate, there's buyer and seller markets, and same in the workforce. There's a buyer, seller, and the seller is the employee and the buyer is the employer. And right now it's an
Absolutely.
employee market. So, all right, if there's anybody else that wants to come to this conversation, including some of those of you we don't know yet, we'd love to have you raise your hand or put something in the chat, and Michelle will manage. So many of you we don't know yet, and I want to know you. I want to meet you. I want to invite you to the conversation. So please consider this to be an invitation and an opportunity to grab the mic. If you do grab the mic, then distill your comments. We do like to prevent rants. And we normally don't hear any rants on this, but if you have anything on planning, go for it. Let Michelle know, and we'll get to hear from you. Meanwhile, I'm going to get to our next topic. And this is absolutely a topic that was very engaging when we were on earlier today. And that has to do with something called agility. And so let's see here. Now, let's do a polling moment here, which Michelle's going to bring up, and it relates to agility. And so here's the question: where do you find the greatest need for agility in your business right now? Now, and you could break that down into one of the functions: finance, operations, human capital, education, and marketing. And try not to, well, actually, we don't give the answer. We don't give the chance doesn't apply. So even if you're not a school owner, perhaps this question still does relate with you. So go ahead and see if you can answer. This is really good polling data to find out where we're at. And my gosh, look at human capital just scream to being the biggest need for agility right now. Yeah. So least agile in human capital, and the greatest need for agility right now is human capital. Oh my gosh, I guess we should be talking about human capital, right? So let's get into the subject of agility here for a moment. And one of the things that Michelle and I do each week is we spend some time, find out what's going on in the world, and try to bring relevant content to our audiences. And Michelle and I were struck by this article as related to agility, and what is agility, how to shape it for your organization. So I'm going to have my co-producer, Michelle, come off mic and share with you a little bit about agility. What is it, and how it relates to the conversation. So Michelle, you want to join us?
Good morning, everyone. Afternoon. It's great to be with everyone. Yeah, this article was so powerful, Tom. It really talked about how being able to be agile and the power of agility, how it impacts companies. The survey showed that agile companies increase customer satisfaction, improve core operational practices, increase decision-making speed, that they're number one in driving innovation. It says they increase employee engagement, which, as we've seen, everybody is needing help in the area of human capital. So how much better if we can engage our employees. And it also increases efficiency. The study said that companies that were not agile, they weren't able to make decisions as quickly. Often things took them a lot more time than companies that were agile, and they didn't retain their employees or their customers at as high of a rate as those that were agile. So being agile really makes all the difference in the success of your business.
There was a word that hadn't been used a lot in the past, but it really increased in usage the last few years, and that's the word pivot. It's like I didn't, other than Pivot Point, our great partners at Pivot Point, which I've heard for years, the word pivot is part of like common vocabulary, just seemed to be used a lot over the last few years. And I think it's a great word and it's highly relevant. I like the introduction and changing the language a little bit to the word agility. And Michelle, we talked about defining what agility is, and I'm really curious to see who's going to raise their hand and come up to the mic here to talk about agility in their business and what it means to them. Would really, I'm looking at people like Alcott, you're welcome to join, or Caitlin, Sissy, Claire, Dave, Dawn, Diane. Let's get some of you guys talking. Jamie, Jennifer, Jessica, Julie, Kevin, you're certainly welcome to join us. There's Alcott. So I just think agility is such an important conversation right now, Alcott. Let's get this guy off the mic. How are you, Alcott?
Good. How are you? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Talk about agility to us. Well, first of all, you're from Pivot Point. Tell us a little bit about your role, and then let's have you weigh in here.
So I actually lead the team of schools that support all of the private schools in both 50 states of the US and Canada. So this has obviously been a very interesting year for us, and actually last year was probably a little crazy interesting, but this year has been more and more interesting.
God, you've got to have an insight from your perspective. So tell us about agility, what you see and what you think.
I think that what we're seeing is that the needs of our customers have completely changed from what we do from levels of support. So obviously, as Mark said, there's a big shift happening in the way that schools are enrolling students and what pockets of opportunities that opened up. So I think it's for us, it's trying to understand how those shifts happen, not only just from a support standpoint, but also even from a logistics standpoint, making sure that we have the product that they need when they need it, because everything seems to be shifting so dramatically and so quickly, so I think we're taking a pretty deep dive in listening and making connections and understanding what's different and how we can support that way.
Where over to you, Mark. And don't go far, Alcott. You can just hang in the wings if you want. But Mark, where do you feel the greatest need to be agility? And being really specific. So if you were to narrow it down to like one area, Mark, where do you feel the greatest need for agility in your school business right now?
I would say the opportunity would be the connection and the relationship between the industry, and I say the salon owners and the schools, and how better they can connect and build the systems, build the curriculum around what's needed in the industry. I think schools sometimes function at the level as schools function, and yet they're producing a product, if I can call that a product, the future professionals, and it's not so much connected to the conversations they're hearing what the salons need. I mean, I'm both sides of the fence. I see both sides, and I've always had, even before I had the school. And we're tied into the systems that we use, and that we use Pivot Point. It's a great product, but I do think there's got to be a little bit more beyond that in terms of the relationship, so that the students can understand from the salon owner's perspective what is exactly needed to be successful in our industry. Yeah, it's one thing to get the certificates and you take a test, but now you're going to go into this new profession, and either you've been around it all your life and you're familiar with it, or you dive into it and expectations have never really been clearly spelt out to that future professional. So sometimes they go in with unclear expectations, and so they're swimming and looking and trying to find their way in it. And I think it's the industry's responsibility to build futures for these kids. Yeah, they have their own responsibility to themselves, but I think the industry as a whole, we have a responsibility to the profession to raise the bar for these kids and support them through it. When you look at the statistics of what's happening after 5 years, 80% of them were gone. Out of 10, it's 1 out of 10 years. That doesn't say much for our industry.
Well, I think what you're saying has so much wisdom to it. And, over to Nicole here for a moment, because you know, what you're part of what you were stressing, Mark, is the connection between the schools and the employers, the salons or spas.
Exactly.
And I'm going to invite a guy by the name of Kip to the mic. Kip, join us in a minute because you've got an interesting perspective too, because you're on the salon and spa side. So let's get you to contribute in a moment. So Nicole, agility to you, how that relates to you and your business, you and Orlando and your team.
Well, you know, agility for us right now, as your poll showed, is really for us focusing on human capital. And like you said earlier, it is definitely an employee's market right now. So we're really finding ourselves being extremely creative and how we're bringing new people on. We're also trying to make sure people are feeling appreciated, and you know, because during all of this time, people have had to work really, really hard. Not that they didn't work hard before, but you know, sometimes they're having to wear a few more hats than normal, particularly as you know, people didn't come back or they found other opportunities. And you know, we're finding ourselves in a really unique position that we aren't normally in, where we're really struggling trying to find new team members. But at this point, we're competing with so many other markets.
You talked about Taco Bell, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Taco Bell is starting out at like $18, $19 an hour, you know, which is nuts right now. I mean, it's good for the employee, but it puts the employer at a unique position because we're trying to keep the budget intact. We're trying to make sure that, you know, we don't over promise and, you know, and not be able to deliver. But on the same time, we're trying to make sure that, you know, somebody that brings us a resume, they can really live up to it. So more than ever, we're finding that we have to make positions more KPI focused. And that's really how you measure it. But you got to get them in the door first. You know, you can't start them out a little lower and then based on the KPIs increase, you know, their benefits and their pay accordingly. They're like, I'm not even talking to you. I'm not even picking up the phone unless you start at top dollar. So we're finding ourselves in a really unique position. So being agile, you know, being agile in that area, we had our leadership meeting yesterday, and we had a really, really intense conversation, robust conversation, I should say, just about around that area, because we had a discussion about different things that people were bringing to the table, different ideas, and we have a rubric that we put all of our decisions through before we decide whether or not to do it. So of course we had to, part of the rubrics is the budget. And you have to look at the big picture on what that really looks like, particularly in a school environment. You know, if you're putting off, you know, you're allowing people to take some days off, then that affects future professionals are now not clocking on a particular day. You know, if you're doing certain things now, you're looking at adding more staff than you normally would need to add. So that affects the budget. There's so many different things. And at the end of the day, everything affects the budget.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's the thing. All the functions connect with each other. Human capital with finance, marketing with human capital, all of that. We have Kip, who Kip, let's take you off the mic. You're going to have an interesting perspective. You are not a school owner. You have a single location salon spa in Nashville, Tennessee, a booming market down there, Kip. I keep hearing stories about the housing market in Nashville is insane. And Kip, I'm glad you joined us. You were on the other call this morning, and you've always have some great perspective. So you're not a school owner. You have the perspective of an employer. So weigh in on the topic of agility in a way that maybe makes sense to you from your point of view.
Oh, thank you for this opportunity. The number one reason I'm here on this call right now is I want to understand what makes a school tick so that I can do a better job of basically aligning with the school. Like, what is it?
Oh my God, I want that, and I want that recorded. That's right to Mark's point. Keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I love that.
So I would, I mean, but listen, agility right now in this market is who can hire the best of the best of the best. Because if you have the best people, you will be more agile than everybody else, period. So I am really very focused on figuring out my human capital game right now, because my demand for services is at an all-time high. And the only thing that's limiting me right now is the ability to have great staff, and I need them on all generations. Some people say, well, you got to recruit them only from the schools, and I'm like, no, I need them from the schools, and I need the Gen Xers, and I need those people that are in their 30s and 40s as well, because we have our market is soccer moms and older, maybe even some empty nesters. So they want experienced, great staff. So I'm really just, my agility in the other call I told you was about technology, but I'm realizing really agility means you're perfecting yourself in all of the ways you have to approach the market.
What is it? Whoops, sorry, Kip.
Well, I want to give you a shout out, because I'm continuing my discovery of 5 functions and 8 seasons, because I do believe that gives everybody a bit of a song sheet in your organization to follow, so that you can create a rhythm. Agility does mean rhythm too. Like in your football team, you got to have rhythm in that cadence, right? So you're trying to create a rhythm, and then you're trying to bring the best people. You're trying to give them the best structure, the best culture. All of that agility is dependent on doing it all well, in sync.
So, Kip, what do you wish you knew, or regarding the interface that you have with schools? And to Mark's point, I mean, that interconnectedness is so important. What do you wish you knew more about from schools?
I wish I knew how to be there routinely. And if I were to really wish, what I could create is like, how is it that I could be in there as a part of their curriculum?
Oh,
like
okay.
Teaching them, because I believe that's the best way. If they're actually gaining education from an owner, in my opinion, I would love to know if I created a curriculum that an owner was then educating, because is that something that's needed?
Yeah. All right. He's threw a question out there, and I'd love to see other people come off, step up to the mic here and see if they could be bold and grab the mic and respond to Kip's question. I'm going to start with Mark or Nicole, but also would love to have some other contributors. Now, I don't really want to corner someone into this, but I see a lot of people here I would love to hear from. So, Michael, would you like to come on? Would you like to ask your question, Michael S.? If so, we'd love to have you ask your question verbally, not to put you on the spot, Michael, but I do that. So here's Michael's question. Oh, okay, Michael. Michael, how are you? Let's get you off mute.
Hi, Tom.
Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself, okay?
Michael Shea. I am a school owner in Tacoma, Washington. Been in the business about 15 years in the school business, but have done just about everything else you could imagine, from, standing behind the chair to owning and managing and all the other things that come along with it. And the thought I wanted to say to Kip was, we've seen great success from salon owners coming and partnering with us. And what they've found to be, what I've found the common is, teach our students what makes your salon unique. What's the opportunity with you versus Joe Blow down the street? And that seems to be one of the most successful approaches we've seen really work for those salon owners.
Michael, lots of wisdom there. Kip, I think you've got a really great answer. What's your response to that?
I think that's valuable. What I'm curious, kind of the next gradient below that is, but what do the students seek to know about salon ownership from an owner?
That's a great question. I think it's going to vary by the student. I think we see that a certain percentage of these students have in their head that they want to own a salon someday, which is great for our industry. I think the most common thing that I see is most of the students who want to be on their own. You know, they're bought into the, I want to be in a suite, I want to rent a chair, I want to have, you know, I want to have freedom, I want to be able to set my own schedule, those kinds of things. And I think one of the big challenges, and I think about this every day, is are we being realistic with our students to help them understand that you really don't have that much flexibility when you come down to it. If you're going to make a good living in the industry, you've got to be available for the guest, not the guest be available for you. So my 2 cents.
That's great.
That's a pretty good, that's a pretty good 2 cents, Michael. Thank you. And Kip, thank you too. Melissa had a comment here. Students want mentorship, development, career path, and flexibility. I think that's an awesome response. All right, Michelle, I'm looking at the clock here today, and I know that we wanted to talk about agility here. And Jared, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to this conversation before we wrap up here regarding agility from your seat on the bus.
I think we've done a really good job of it. I think, you know, it's across the board. It's not just schools. We have it in our firm as well. You know, finding the right people is critical, and especially the people that can adapt. You know, I think that's especially CPAs, because we suck at adapting. As a general, we have our checklist and we want to do it the way we did it last year and the way we've done it for 100 years. But, you know, finding somebody that buys into the vision that you have and is willing to consider, you know, a little bit outside the box in terms of their responsibilities, but also in terms of what it takes to get there is key. Absolutely.
Nice. Thank you. So great feedback, guys. And I think where my mind is going with each successive week that we're in this post-pandemic, I'd almost call it a renaissance. I mean, I'm just shocked with the resilience of the economy and how there's how inflation is becoming a factor, and shortage of supplies, and then labor shortage. I mean, we've talked about that a lot, and yeah, I think that it is becoming at a point of a critical mass in terms of labor related issues. And certainly during these roundtable calls, we need to continue to address that. And what we'll be doing is, one of the things we did on the last roundtable is I think we provided some good solutions around that. Stephanie Fox had some really great ideas as it relates to the talent war. So anyway, so great to get some new contributors here today, like Alcott, thank you very much, and Michael, Nicole, Mark, Jared, and Kip. Let's give you guys a shout out here. I guess we can officially welcome all of you to the Brain Trust. Okay, so Michael, you're now part of the Brain Trust too. Alcott, all of you guys. So thanks for being part of the conversation. I'm going to pull the screen back up here. Michelle, let's see what else we got to share here. We talked about agility. We did all our polls, correct, Michelle? I think we covered.
Yep, we've got them all.
Okay, great. In a future week, we're going to talk about resilience and other great topics. Again, thanks to those of you that contributed today. One of the things that we'll spend just a moment talking about is transition planning. Many schools are owned by individuals that might be starting to look at what's next for them. 41% of you have considered an exit / transition plan. and 18% haven't. Now, keep in mind, the reason why the math doesn't add up is many people said this didn't apply to them. But certainly keeping your eyes open, it's a really good time to be proactively looking at your transition plan. And so we'll continue to discuss that, whether you're in a grow or go mode. I love this. We talked about this a little bit 2 weeks ago, and there's a whole series about a transition plan and family change of ownership and making light of it, as well as making great drama around it. So, all right, guys, let me see if we got anything else in the chat here today. All progress starts when you tell the truth. Thanks for telling the truth today. This type of format next week. We will have some guests with us. The schedule is, Michelle, maybe you can go through the schedule. I think we're on the next 2 weeks, and then we take a week off. Is that what it is?
No, we are on all through June. We do have a special guest host for June 23rd, and then we will be off on July 7th.
Beautiful. All right. All right. And so, guys, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for a great conversation about planning, agility, and all the other things that are on the horizon today. We'll see you guys in a week. Have a good one. And thanks again for joining us. So this will be the end. Bye.